um, my husband asked me what this pin was I was wearing. So the USEF just sent that to me. It represents 30 years, 3 decades of being a USEF judge. But it's been that long, and I said it's actually been 3 or 4 years. Wow. And in that time, I figure conservatively I've judged more than 50,000 tests. And that's at regular shows. That's not counting schooling shows, fix-it tests, helping people work on their showmanship. So I've seen a lot, and as a writer, I did what you guys are all doing. So I learned a lot that way. One thing I will tell you I will never, ever say is I have seen it all. Something different happens. Not every show, but I was doing a schooling show for Foothills about 5 years ago. Longer than that. The writer halted at X at the end of her test facing A and saluted A. Never had that happen. And she did not get an A. But when she came out of the ring, I hugged her. Well, I mean, poor lady. Okay, so tonight we're not talking about 4s, 5s, and 6s. We're talking, in fact, I meant to do this. I meant to do this earlier. I once had a scribe who put a smiley face on the top of every 8 that I gave. So think of this, we are aiming, what will it take to get I think we're all familiar, probably. Okay, the first thing I want to ask you all, just so I have a sense of what we're talking about, how many of you are, your goal for this year, if you have a goal, is intro level? So be brave, hands. Okay, we've got several intro. Training level? Okay, quite a few. First level? Yay. Second level? Above second level. Anybody? Someday. Okay. Now, Edith said we will have questions at the end. I would like to edit, Edith, and say if you have a question, ask it. Go ahead and you're not interrupted. As we go along, I might say something that confuses you, or and let's ask the question right now. And don't think, oh, gee, maybe this is too basic. What I have found is that it might be something that other people are thinking of as well. So just go ahead and ask it. We're going to have a conversation tonight. And I hope we're going to have a conversation tonight. And this is I very often hear people say, I'm not sure what the judges want. Well, tonight's your chance to find out. But also, as Edith started to point out, which was excellent, on a score sheet, it's a sort of a small version, this is the column for the description of the movement you're going to do. This column right here that says directives at the top, which the test writers have spent a great deal of time working on, says exactly what the judge is looking for in that movement. And I will tell you how rarely people read that column, nor do they read the description up here, which is what the level is specifically asking for. So if you're one, and also when the test writers, we have a wonderful committee who writes the test, by the way. They put a lot of thought into this. They also pretty much put the directives in order of importance. So if you have any questions, what do the judges want? It's here first. So go back there and look. Yes?
Okay, so at the top line there, of what you're looking for over,
This
what
guy.
does it read?
I'm sorry?
Can you read it?
Sure. This is training level.
Okay.
Okay. So purpose of training level: to confirm that the horse demonstrates correct basics by showing, and I should apologize, the lights aren't working, so I'm having a little bit of trouble with light tonight. By showing suppleness both laterally and longitudinally, sideways, front to back. Moving freely forward in a clear rhythm with steady tempo and readily accepting contact with the bit. Correct geometry and lines of travel should be shown. Now, one of the key phrases in there is accepting the bit. The standard at training level is accepting the bit. That changes pretty dramatically at first level. You have to be on the bit. And I will say I have seen FEI judges judging FEIs at Precinct George. I've seen Barry Rockwell hit his head on the table and recent blood vessel. So they're supposed to be on the bit at first level. Because they're not always on the bit at FEI. Yes?
So is rhythm regularity of gaits? Can you go over tempo, rhythm,
Absolutely,
regularity?
and that's hugely important. Yeah. And I'm going to ask another question first. So, and if anybody actually has a copy of the test in front of them, don't look. At the bottom of the test, we've got 5 now boxes of collective marks. There's one box for gaits. Can anybody here tell me the 2 elements, and there's only 2 elements that go into the gait score? Does anybody here know?
Is this freedom and regularity?
Bingo. Okay. Well, it's actually regularity and freedom.
Okay.
But we're all familiar with the deadly. Which changes about every. Well, it may do change it. But the base, I'm not going to answer your question. The base is regularity. And by regularity, they mean rhythm. And by rhythm, they mean something very different from tempo. Yeah. It's very, very simple. 2-beat trot, 3-beat canter, 4-beat walk. That's all. Oh. That's it. That's rhythm. In other words, the specific football of those 3 gaits. Tempo, which is not in that box, but might fall under impulsion, maybe, is how the rate of repetition. So this is trot. That's a 2-beat trot. The tempo changed, not the regularity. And in judging, the sin of sins is loss of regularity. It's the bottom of the triangle. So in doing what you're doing, whatever movement you're doing, if the horse becomes irregular, either because of soundness or because of anxiety, tension, there's a lot of reasons. Tightness of the back, a misstep, loss of balance. That becomes, we're not talking an 8, okay? We're probably not even talking 7. If you're lucky, we're talking a 6. So regularity is huge. Is that, yeah, right? Yeah. That answers your question, I hope. Okay. And just as, so since I've got it in my hand, rhythm is at the bottom. The next one up is this, says suppleness. It used to be relaxation. They changed it to suppleness a few years ago. And then contact. For training level, we're really mostly addressing those 3 lines. Okay? Then, for first level, we move up to impulsion and straightness. That's included in first level. And then second level and up, we add collection. Does that help you understand this thing? But the one at the bottom, rhythm, is the sin of sins. If you lose that, you've lost it all. Yes?
Okay, as far as
And I haven't gotten 8s yet.
as far as you're speaking of regularity, so I'm just trying to clarify. You want to see regularity, meaning if this is your horse's trot, this is the trot you stay in your whole test, right?
Yes.
But so you don't want to see like, okay, down my long side, from this point to this point of the score, I can show you a little better trot because you might relax a little bit better than the 20-meter
No,
circle.
the regularity is the to-be trot. You didn't change the to-be trot.
Okay, so you can,
might have changed
if you
the
vary the trot a little
What you
bit.
changed was the supplements.
Oh, okay, makes
Right?
sense, yeah.
And that's maybe the difference between a 7 and an 8. The
Right.
supplements gets better, the expression of the stride gets better, you go from a 7 to an 8.
Okay, so regularity is just being in that 2 beats, but it could be a little better here, a little worse there. That's not going to be
No.
what's so crucial to you.
No, it's simpler than that.
Okay,
2-beat trot, 3-beat canter, 4-beat walk.
okay.
That's it. It's that simple. Yeah, that's actually one of the few black and white parts of this. And if in your training at home you lose the regularity, you stop. Okay, shoulder in. Or half pass. No, don't go any further. If you're in your training, if you lose the regularity, that's your red flag. And now, we're not talking about training today, we're talking about showing. But those two things translate. Yes?
So how set in stone, you had just said of the pyramid, and I'm used to rhythm and relaxation, but rhythm,
That's fine.
regularity, suppleness, and contact, right? So,
For the bottom is rhythm, the next one's suppleness
Right.
/ relaxation. This has elasticity and freedom from anxiety.
and then the yellow is,
Contact,
yeah, okay.
connection, and acceptance.
And you said those are training level.
Yeah.
Straightness is first level.
That's where it really becomes much more important.
Okay. But however, but a judge will say not straight or straight.
We might
or-
if it's pretty obvious.
So if you do, then does the score go down based on, well,
It
it's-
probably won't go above a 7.
Okay.
Okay, a canter circle might be where it would show up. And the horse is, the front end's on 20 meters and the hind end's on 19 meters. That might be a half a point.
Okay.
We don't really expect the training of the horses to be totally straight because they're not strong. And straightness comes with strength. Does that help?
Excellent.
All right, I've got 2 points, lines that I've done so far on my little pink card. What I said, ask questions. Okay. This is my email address. When you leave here tonight, the next time you get an 8 at a show that you didn't expect, I want an email. And I'm judging the next Foothills Schooling show, so you can find me there. Okay. 8s, more often than not, are found in the corners. They're not necessarily found in the heart of the movement, but they're found in the corners. So you get the heart of the movement, say the 20-meter circle, and you've done that pretty well. But then you cut the corner. The judge is thinking an 8, now they're thinking 7. But and I'll get into that more. Okay. But a lot of the key to getting 8s is found in the corners. And how many corners do you do in a dressage test? Especially if it's an authentic dressage test. You need, I don't think people go from 5s to 8s. If you're thinking 8s, you probably should be, hopefully, at least thinking, get a good 6 going, then figure it out and get a good 7 going. But you're not going to go from 5 to 8. So, and it's a progression. So, here is you've probably all seen this. And the words mean something. So, I've had people say, oh, gee, you didn't give any positive comments. I said, I gave you a 7 or an 8. That's a positive. It means something. The number is a comment. Think about it. And in the rule book, as a judge, I am required by the rule book. If it's below a 7, I have to give a comment. Have to. If it's a 7 or higher, I don't have to. And very often, I'm taking pity on my scribe or I'm worn out. And I may not, or I don't want to say steady. The best of all possible worlds is to get an 8 with a negative comment. Because that's the judge saying, I see a 9 coming. Right? So if you get a positive score, like a 7, but with a quote unquote comment that sounds like, well, there was some sort of problem, that's actually the judge saying, cool. If you just get a 7 with steady, the judge is sort of saying, you look like you've topped out. So. And part of the issue is I judge a lot of, FBI tests, front pre-tests. There's 36 boxes in 6 minutes. And I have finally gotten awfully used to not saying anything if it's a 7 or higher. Because at that point, I can't spit the words out fast. Tonight is about showing, not about training. Training is what you do at home. There was a very nice article about that Williams, anything that Bill Steinkraus writes that comes up on Facebook, read it. And the article I saw this week said, training is what you do at home. Make your training perfect at home. When you get to the show, do what you need to do. So showing, I'm not saying you never sacrifice the well-being of your horse. But what the judge doesn't see won't hurt you. Just figure out how you can go for the best number you can. Okay. Basics to get an 8. These are what you really need to make the difference between a 7 and 8. Number 1, accuracy. Everybody's favorite. Accuracy. Yes. I think too many people, like I said, they read the column that tells you where you're going to go. They don't tell you the next column, which is how you go. So, and judges aren't expecting somebody knows Lauren Spreiser. She puts anything on Facebook, read it. She went, how can you tell people what you do without telling them what you do? And I said, I evaluate people on horseback doing high school geometry in a sandbox. It's not about the geometry, it's about the accuracy. How accurate you are demonstrates that you have control of the horse. So if your circle is 19 meters, the horse fell in on his inside shoulder. If the circle is 22 meters, he drifted out through his shoulder. You don't have control. My comment might be a circle large. Rather than telling the poor scribe to write 10 words, I'm saying large, 1 word. But in an issue of accuracy, what we're really looking for is how well you can control the horse, not whether you can do high school geometry in a sandbox. Yes?
So I heard, might have been Lauren first talking about, I count the strides on the 10-meter circle. So at what level are we supposed to be counting the strides? Should we count the strides on the 20-meter circle and make sure we've planned out this many strides? What level do people start doing that?
A lot of people don't ever do it. That's what
Okay, well,
But, and one of the things that she was talking about was, for example, talking about the end of the arena from corner to corner. It's information to you. So, okay, one of the rules, pirouettes, walk pirouettes, canter pirouettes are supposed to be 3 to 4 steps, full pirouette 6 to 8 steps. So the number, it's not that I sit there and count, oh, you did 9 steps, you did 5 steps. No, the quantitative tells me the qualitative. You see what I'm saying? In other words, if it's 4 steps, it means you spun, and if it's 9 or 10 steps, it was too big. Do you see what I'm getting at? So you can, at home or wherever you're doing this, count strides and give yourself information. A really good place to do that is on lengthenings, trot lengthenings. So if you trot yourself across the diagonal, point A to point B, then come back and ask for a lengthening. Presumably, you should have fewer number of strides. If you didn't, you got faster, but you didn't get longer. And that's a very useful piece of information. So if you're practicing your lengthenings on a 20-meter circle, for example, which is very, very useful, and you're going between B and E and a marked arena, you might do half the circle on a lengthened trot, half the circle on a regular trot, half the circle on a lengthened trot. See if you're getting fewer strides.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a piece of information.
Yeah.
And of course it changes with how the tight horse's back is, or the breed of the horse, or whether it's cold that day or warm that day, whatever. Okay, anyway, accuracy is important because we would comment on it. Like I said, it's a demonstration to the judge that you control your horse, that the horse isn't deciding what the line is, that you're deciding what the line is. But also importance of accuracy, especially the importance of the 20-meter circle, is it's a very, very important training tool, the true round 20-meter circle. So if you can't demonstrate that you can do a true round 20-meter circle, you're demonstrating that you've got a hole in your training, that the way you're training. But truly, I love setting up a 20-meter circle with cones. And if you want me to tell you how we do it, what's really interesting is I see all the time a horse that's a little bit unsteady, and you put him on an accurate 20-meter circle, and all of a sudden he becomes steady. You didn't do anything else other than it's an accurate 20-meter circle. And that's because the rider is no longer doing this, they're doing this. And all of a sudden the horse goes on the bit. So that's an important part of that. Important part of accuracy, remember where the judge is sitting. This is key. Remember, you're there to you're there to show the judge how well trained the horse is. The judge sits here, which means anything that happens here is huge. Because we can see that center line. Got that? Yes. It kind of blows my mind how often that seems to be a mystery. It's between A and C. And look up. Oh, it's down there. And okay, so let's say you're doing a 10-meter circle. You should, at B, you should be looking up the last quarter of the circle down toward A or C, whatever direction you're going in, to aim at A or C. If you don't, you're going to overshoot X, and then the judge goes circle large. Like I said, I'm having trouble seeing. Okay, circles, size and shape. 10-meter circle. I can certainly tell if it's a 10-meter circle because if it starts there, it should go to there. That's a 10-meter circle, right? 10 meters from there to there, 10 meters from there to there. So 10-meter circle is easy for me to sort out as a judge. 8-meter circle at FEI is easy to sort out. It starts at X because it goes to about there. Really easy to see. 15-meter circle at C would be, this is 10, 10, 10, 10. Therefore, if you're doing a 15-meter circle at C at first level, it's somewhere between the quarter line and the one side. It's not between the two quarter lines. That's a 10-meter circle. Even more interesting is the concept of the shape of the 20-meter circle. I will tell you that at fence, in that side arena, I see an awful lot of ice cream cones instead of circles. And one of the things, now I'm talking about 20-meter circle in the middle of the way. One of the things, the issues that people have, they forget, the horse has got a brain too. And they're very subtle in the way they use their brain. And they know where A is. I honestly don't even have to say it, right? So why aren't you writing it? Okay. So the circle starts at B. 20-meter half circle here. And then this side goes like that. Because they're drifting toward A. It's even, and it happens in the cupboard, believe it or not. But it really happens, so this is, put this in your brain, especially for the event test, which at fence, you know, they put the short arenas parallel to, they're widthwise in the ring. Okay, so not only is the horse wanting to go where he came in, but all his friends are over there. And I will say that of the event tests, probably 80 to 90% of the horses are making a very nice loop here and something that is not 20 meters here. Now, the subtle way to fix that is to step on your inside stride. The horse will follow your weight. So if you want him to drift, like more towards C, step in the outside stride. If you want him to not drift toward A, step on the inside stride. Or connect on the outside ring. Create a boundary on the outside ring. But I will, how many times have I said drifting? She's the best one. And you scribed all day last week. And how often do I kind of get a little bit friendly about it sometimes, but especially if it's the lower levels of it. But they're drifting. And it's really bad in that ring. So now if you're going to do an event test in that ring, you now know. Okay. And it's even worse at canter than it is at trot. Okay. After corners. Most people, you're nervous, you're a little excited. Corners tend to become something that passed to get the harder movement. But if you want eights, you should be taking full advantage of the corners. And I say that in reality, it's almost a monetary thing. The square footage of the dressage ring is very expensive acreage. You paid a lot of money to be in there, but now you're cutting your corners. You're wasting your money. Okay, the corners will help you, but you're just scooting through it past them as quickly as you can. Yes, ma'am.
With the corners, if you're picturing it being a half circle, what size is it?
Rule of thumb,
Yeah.
and there's no
So
hard
that's
and
why I never know what.
There's-
Sometimes I'm in a corner, sometimes I'm out.
there's no hard and fast rule.
No.
But the rule of thumb is that the arc of the corner, and it is an arc, it's not a hang a left, it's an arc, should be the same arc as the smallest circle you do in that test. Now,
Again, please, Margaret.
I will, but I'm also going to qualify it. The rule of thumb is that the arc of the corner should be the same size arc as the largest circle you do in that test. Right. Now that doesn't, in a sense, make a lot of sense for intro and training a little bit. Your small circles, 20 meters. I'd say more like about the arc of an 18. But if you're coming down the center line and you're going to hang a left and see to start your test, really, for training and intro, you really only just have to kind of hit the end of the ring for a step or two and then proceed at training and intro. At first level, you really need to, at trot, in first level, your smallest circle is 10 meters. So you can see how that arc becomes more sophisticated. At canter, your circle is 50 meters. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that's relative. It's relative to your horse's balance, your horse's training, your horse's strength. But it really surprises me how often I see people at second, third, and higher cutting the corners. And usually they're panic stricken. You know, they just want to head on to the next thing. Corners are where you get the most value out of your half holds. And if I see somebody cutting a corner going into a trot lengthening, I know before they start the trot lengthening, they're not going to get it. Because they didn't do a half halt in the corner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Straightness, very important. Straightness on the center line. And the tool, the most important tool I think for straightness is shoulder 4. And if you are kind of going, what's shoulder 4? I kind of know what shoulder it is. I'm not sure what shoulder 4 is. Shoulder 4 is the idea of a shoulder in without the angle. So you're capturing the outside shoulder, you're mobilizing it toward the midline. The reason it helps straightness, it sounds like I'm asking you to have your horse's front end a little bit to the inside, you're really not. And the reason is that one end of the horse is wider than the other end of the horse. So part of the reason they get crooked is because they're kind of a squash parallelogram. So if you mobilize the outside shoulder a little bit more toward the midline, you're actually making him straighten his tail. Do the whole test in shoulder 4 and he's straight. I know that sounds like, huh? And you're saying the judge says that that's stand in shoulder 4. No, we're all riders. We know about this. Go in shoulder 4. You'll get straighter. Because you'll have control of the outside shoulder. If the horse puts his outside shoulder wherever he wants to, he can put his butt wherever he wants to. In fact, straightness is not moving the hind end around. It's moving the front end in line with the hind end. That's straightness. Okay. Another basic. Practice your tests at home. The whole or wherever you can practice them. I hear people say, oh, I don't want to practice them too much, the horse will get bored. Well, you want to learn your test so well that when you get to the show, you don't have to think about the test. You're no longer riding the test, you ride the horse. And I see so many people get to the show and I say, I can't remember. You're just going to be, the whole time you're riding the test, thinking about where do I go next. You're not thinking about what does my horse need from me to be more supple, have better balance. Once you know the test cold, then you will find it so much easier when you get to the shows. And your scores will go up. Yes?
What can you do about the anticipating horse if you ever practice a test?
Well, I don't have a problem with anticipating. I have a problem with the horse who then blocks you out and goes ahead and does what it wants to do. I like a horse that's saying, is the medium coming? Is the medium coming? Is the medium coming? And you'll say no. Yes. Go. Okay, sure. Does that make sense? Now, you learn strategies. For example, I had a horse that anticipated going Canada trot at sea. And what I learned was that a good transition from Canada trot is usually achieved by if the rider blows the breath out. So conversely, if you don't want the horse to break, hold your breath. I'm not joking.
Really?
Especially at the end of a lengthened canter. Don't hold your breath there. Or if there is a spot where they do start to anticipate, figure something out. But don't use that as the reason you don't practice the test at home. Now that doesn't mean you run through the test start to finish every time. You might do just the canter work, you might do this trot work, or you might do a key pattern like shoulder into circle to have pass kind of thing. So you can do that. You don't have to necessarily start at A and finish at X every time you ride it. But it's not enough to study the test the night before and then hope that when you get to the show you'll remember the test. Okay. And I will also say, I believe in readers. Some people don't want to have a reader. You want to have a reader who knows how to read. More people go off course with readers than without, in my experience. And that's because they're nervous. They're not going off course because they don't know the test. They're going off course because they're nervous. And they even block out the readers. It amazes me how often people with readers go off course. So it really helps you in the ring when you get to the show to know your test cold. But the other reason it really, really helps is that if you're used to riding the test at home, you can practice where your half halts are going to be and what the timing of your half halt needs to be. Does that make sense? So going into the corner, preceding the trot length at first level, do I do a big half halt going into the corner? Do I do it in the corner? Do I do it coming out of the corner? Do I do 3? If you know the test, you know where the half halts are. And that will make a huge difference in being able to get a mate. Because the half halts, you know, I have seen whole articles written on the concept of a half halt. But in reality, all the half halt is reestablishing the quality of your horse's balance. So if you have effective half halts, the horse is always up and in front of you and comfortable. If he gets a little out of balance, then he's no longer comfortable and he can't do what you're asking. Whereas in every corner, a half halt, especially coming into lengthenings, makes it possible for him to do what you're asking him to do. That. Okay. I think this is huge. And I don't know, I think this is a very individual answer for everybody. And it's to become very, very attuned to your emotions at a show. So by that I mean, how many people have won the warm-up and they get to the ring and they've got a horse that they don't recognize? What happened to my horse between the warm-up and the ring? And usually what happened to the horse is you froze because here comes the test. So the horse is simply becoming a little bit more on the muscle. He's more distracted. Yeah, now fence is problematic in this regard because if you're going to the coverage, you're going over the bridge, you're going away from the other horses. But the same thing, you're going over the bridge if you're going to the other rooms. So that's a little bit problematic. Fence is worse in this regard than some other facilities. But many facilities are like that. And I just know from all the people I've coached, from my own experience, that you can have positive tension and negative tension. But people don't realize how much. I think the word test perhaps is part of the problem. It's a test. Let's say it's a performance. Let's say it's whatever you want to call it. You know, you want to turn on your headlights. You don't want to dim your headlights between the warm-up and the ring. Does that make sense? So be aware. Don't be surprised if you have a different horse when you get to the ring. Mostly because you're different. And, you know, breathe. I will also tell you how many times I've seen people ride a test, especially at training level. They go through all the trot work and they get to the free walk. They've been holding their breath. And it's not unusual. So if they're holding their breath, it means they're, and that's part of it.
Even Margaret was really funny is how many times are you being told breathe, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, don't forget to exhale.
Yeah.
That's what usually happens.
Very true. It is. Another big aspect of this that you may or may not have thought about, conditioning is huge, especially once past first level. People think, oh, they're just trotting and cantering around the ring for 5 minutes. The horses that are in better condition are the horses that can do bigger, better things. Now, it's especially important second level and up. And you hear about the FEI riders who all talk about conditioning. And many FEI riders do their horses twice a day. So they'll have a schooling session in the morning and they or somebody else will hack the horse in the afternoon. And nice long walks are great for conditioning. I knew this intellectually. Where it came home to me was on a horse I had that I was, she's never going to get more than a 6 in a medium. And then I spent the winter schooling flying changes, and so I spent the winter doing a lot of counter, because that coach that I had then really believed in learning flying changes, counter, not counter, true counter. So 3 months we did nothing but counter. I never actually asked for a medium. Came about late March, I was riding with one other person in the ring, and she asked if she could follow me across the diagonal in medium, and I stopped cold, I went, medium? This isn't a good medium. She said, we have a little bit medium. I went, well, I hadn't schooled a medium trot in 3 months. The next show I got 8s in my mediums. It was just the conditioning. Okay, now, especially for collection, second and above, shoulder in is huge, counter canter is huge. Both are excellent. And lots and lots and lots of true simple changes are good for conditioning. Now, yes, it's important, it's useful, of course, for first level. And I can remember galloping down the long side in a lengthened canter and hoping and praying that we didn't break in the corner. And that's conditioning too. But don't forget that your horse has to think this is easy, not hard. And conditioning will do that for you. Okay, so I'm a journalist. I can't think without an implement in my hands. And Edith mentioned, I actually, working for the Associated Press, covered the equestrian event at 7 Olympics. So that was a lot of fun and a lot of work, but that was my other gig. Thinking from a showmanship point of view, it's very, very useful to think of what the judge can clearly see from C, and therefore you want to be aware of that and emphasize it. So what can the judge see? The judge can, as opposed to say having a judge on the side if you're on a championship, the judge at C can really see straightness. So that's key. But especially on the center line. And on the long side certainly, but especially on the center line. So straightness is important. The judge can see, as I pointed out earlier, the center line very, very clearly. And someday I want to write an article, Connection or somebody, on what it takes to get the perfect center line at the beginning of the test. And I could write an entire article on the subject. So I'm not going to bring it up now because we might not get a chance to talk about anything else. I could talk about the center line for half an hour and what it takes to guarantee you a square halt. And so if at 8:30 we still have time, I will tell you, but it's a bit of a talk. It's legitimate if you have 2 judges, one's at C and one's on the side. I have heard people say, I don't know why she got a 9 for that halt. It was a lousy halt. Well, from C it was dead straight. The judge had to give them a high score. You could have legitimately a 6 on the side and an 8 or a 9 in front. Because if it's dead straight and all the judge can see is essentially 2 legs, they can't tell that there's a leg, yes. Or parked out. Okay, so if you can't do anything else on the center line, make it straight. Because we can't see all that much, but we can see straight. We can also at C see you in profile as opposed to front to back when you're on a circle or when you're at the end of the ring. And remember the far end of the ring. Remember I said, you know, you're not necessarily being judged at the far end of the ring. There's not much that happens down there except maybe turns a day, but we're still watching it. And I see people kind of trudge through the end of the ring, and I see people sparkle through the end of the ring. Well, you know, you've got a gate score at the bottom, and the component of the gate score is for you. And then you've got an impulsion score, and a component of the impulsion score is suppleness. So you want to be riding the end of the ring. You want to be riding where the judge can see you in profile, as well as front to back. And when there's 2 judges or more, there's no place to hide. Whereas if there's only 1 judge at C, there are a few places you can hide. I can see clearly most of the things that happen on this side of X. I can't always quite so clearly see things that happen on that side of X. I leg yielded out the ring at A once, asking for a canter depart. I was out of the ring. And I just jumped back in and kept on going. And the judge at the end said, "Oh, you had some trouble down there today, but the rest of us." She couldn't see it because it was 200 feet away. Yeah. Well, it was a chain ring too, so it was not quite as obvious. So if the horse has white legs, it's harder for me. But remember, it's 200 feet away. So if you have, especially a young horse, a new horse to show him, and you think they might drop their shoulder and do what that horse did to me and leg yield at the ring today, ride the second track at the end of the ring. Don't go all the way into the track. Cut the corner 1 meter. I can't tell. Right? And then keep your weight on your inside straight. I was trying to be really smart. That was the second horse that I was doing a novice level event, and I knew I would win the dressage, and so I said, I'm going to do this perfect candidate part. In the corner, I go leg yield, set him up, and he leg yielded right out of it. I still won it. Okay, but where that really, like I said, the things that are past acts aren't as clear. Say your horse has a pretty good free walk. You want to, and the free walk is starting, say, M. Say it's a free walk and you're starting here or here. I'm here. If you really don't think, or same thing with lengthening, if you really don't think it's going to be good all the way across, this is the part you want to have good, right? Where it's right in front of my nose. And I will very often not even think about a number for a free walk until if they're coming in this direction, but starting down here, until they're down here. So you don't want to be slugging by that point, because that's the part I can see. Something else I can see because I've trained myself for it. Okay. How far is it from there to there? Good. What happens if your 20-meter circle that started in B goes to there and there? Too big. It's a 24-meter circle. So I will say circle large, but in reality I can't see it that clearly. But darn it, I can see where you crossed. If you cross there, it's too big. Right? So you want to be aware of the fact that that's 12 meters, that's 6 meters, especially if you're for your circles starting at E and B. And then serpentines later on at second level, which I'll bring up. Okay, that I can see pretty clearly, and I watch for it. One thing I really watch for and see very obviously at training at first level is people that have trouble keeping the inside bend and that they're panic stricken and they pull the nose to the outside. I can see counter bend very clearly. and that's not going to get any. It's not a good way to put it. Okay, I can't see halts in the center line if the horse is straight. If the horse is crooked, I can really tell if it's not square. Another thing I can't see on the center line is flying changes, which there are a number of them that happen on the center line. That's one place that in the FEI tests, when they have 5 or 7 judges, you could very easily have 4 judges give it a 4 and 3 judges give it a 7. But now at the major competitions, Olympics, World Cup, places like that, they actually have a revisory panel, and if a discrepancy in the scores come up like that, then the panel, which has a video, reviews it, just like they do in skating, and they can change their score. And the judges love it because they get panic stricken that they can't see and tell if something's clean on the center line. Another thing I cannot see, and something, this is what I'm talking about with showmanship. If you are doing a canter to trot transition at training level, it's anywhere from here to here. If you have a really good, you think you have a really good transition, do it here. If you think you have a bad transition, do it here, because your body obscures half the horse. Right? If I didn't see it, it didn't happen. So you still got at least a 7, maybe even an 8. Yeah, just think about what.
Can you say that one more time?
Okay. Think about it. See, you're not used to, okay, you're probably used to watching tests from the side or on the horse's back. So you don't see things the way the judge sees it. And that's why it's a number of things it's very useful to describe. For example, you start seeing the things that the judge sees.
So where's the judge first?
I'm sorry, right here, judges at C.
Can you stand in front of the podium?
Thank you. Okay. Judges at C. You've done a canter circle, and now you're going down the long side, and you're supposed to do the transition between B and F. If you think you have a good transition,
Into a can.
do it here,
No, canter to trot.
canter to trot, because I can see that. And I'll go, ooh, cool, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
If you have a sucky transition, do it here. Because your body, as the rider, obscures the front of the horse. So the horse is going to go off a bit or something like that. I can see it
Run into it a little
Just make sure you do it before you start to turn the corner.
So that's it's kind of that proximity thing again.
Yeah.
Kind of further we get away, and
Yeah, but it's also the line.
Gotcha.
It used to be, we're not judging out of horse trailers anymore. We used to judge out of horse trailers all the time. And I, as a judge, knew this and took full advantage of it. Because if the judge tended to sit back in the horse trailer like this, excuse me, I own those corners because they didn't see them. But we don't judge out of horse trailers much anymore. So that was another example. So, like I said, whatever the judge can't see won't hurt you. Take advantage of it. Okay, movements where it is easier to get an 8. So if you're going to get an 8 and you're going to send Margaret an email. I got an 8. I think the easiest place in any test is the last halt. Because number one, there's not much happening. You know, you've turned at E, or you're just coming straight down the center line and then you're halting. But also there is a bit of a moment there where, if darn it, you know, I've been kind of spewing a bunch of fat 7s, but you know, a lot of 7-5s or a lot of 6-5s. I've been spewing fat numbers, but not quite the next number. You know, gosh darn it, that last halt, if it's straight, I'm going to give them an 8 just because that's where the score should be. So you tend to, I'm not saying this happens with everybody, but you're thinking, oh, you know, it's a 7.5, but in reality, that was much better test than that. That might bump you up 0.5%. So really, now, if you're not straight, you're not going to get it. Very important. Yes.
So if we're coming down center line and it's a little easier to control that halt and that straightness, if we kind of tuck that trot in just a little more, you can't really tell if we're super forward or if we're a little bit more tucked up and kind of like, okay, come back with me and just stop right here.
And you want to do shoulder 4 and center line just like you do on the one side.
Okay.
Because it makes the horse straight.
So we don't need to necessarily come in like a powerhouse for our halt at X because you can't really tell.
No.
Cool.
But I'll tell you right now, because I may not get a chance to talk about center lines. Finding X is really easy, and this is especially important if you're doing a championship and there's a judge on the side. I don't know who told me this, but they told me this about 20 years ago, and it really truly works. You ride in, you're on the center line, you're locking eyes with the judge. Just like shoulder 4. When E and B disappear from your peripheral vision, halt.
Oh,
I can't tell you how often I see people coming in.
that's what I do.
But now, interestingly, it works works the same if you're walking that center line, trotting that center line, trotting that center line at third level, cantering the center line at Grand Prix. Because your balance is such that your timing is a little different, and it seems to, and if you want to practice that, you can practice it at home. You know, and then, oh gee, look and see, well, I'm a stride early or stride late. Well, then change your time a little bit. But lock eyes with the judge, watch for E and B in your peripheral vision. Oh. So it's fabulous.
Tell us how to get into the ring.
And that was part of what the center line discussion was. But you should always turn inside in. And one thing I always do when if I haven't already looked at the ring, then I do it on my warm-up round, is check and see, number one, how close that idiot in the tractor put A next to the ring. And whether there's a mud puddle in there. And you always want to turn inside A. Think about it, because if you go around A, then you make a serpentine, you're not on the center line until you're 3 or 4 strides down the center line. Whereas if you come inside A and you're not quite there yet, you can leg yield 1 step and you're there. So you always, check and see the position of A, the footing. I mean, if you think about it, but turn inside A. If you go around A, you're setting yourself up for a negative already. And it's interesting how often, if I see people go around A, they never find something. Okay, easiest place to get 8s. I said last hall. I think the stretchy chewy movement is a relatively, if you have a decent stretchy chewy, the problem is we don't see enough good ones. So when we see good ones, we get really excited. But the horse has to go out and down, not just down and not just out. An ideal stretchy chewy, the first quarter of the circle, you soften your head forward. The next 2 quarters of the circle, next half of the circle, you maintain that balance. And then the last quarter of the circle, you put the horse back into the regular outline. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, but the key of this, and the part that I'm watching strongest, is how it starts. Because the point of the stretchy chewy, the reason it went in the test to begin with, and it's always interesting to think about why are these things in here? Because there isn't anything in one of these tests that wasn't in there for a reason. And the reason behind the stretchy chewy is to build in a trained response for when you soften your hand forward, the horse refreshes his top line. So it gets more supple. And that's part of it. If I see your hand go forward, I see the horse stretch out, and he gets more supple. I'm thinking 8. But he has to go out and down, not just out, not just down. And if he starts it by bringing his lower lip to his chest, then that's a 4. Because it's missing the whole point. And that is your tool between a 7 and an 8 when it is you basically, most dressage test movements can be roughly divided into slash and training movements, or obedience movements, and brilliance movements, right? So in the brilliance movements, one of the keys to getting a 7, turning a 7 into an 8, is being able to soften your hand forward a little bit, horse refreshes his top line, gets more supple, gets more expressive. That stretchy chewy thing that you're doing at training level is what's going to get you that at first and second Grand Prix. And when you get to Grand Prix someday, if you watch the good Grand Prix riders in the corners or in the ends of the ring, after they've done some difficult thing like a full canter pirouette or a line of 10 piece, you'll see their hand go like that a little bit. It's subtle, but it's like a mini vacation for their horse. Okay, you've done something hard, you're a little bit tired, you're a little bit tight, now loosen up. And it's the stretchy chewy at training level that will get you to Grand Prix. It's one of the most important basics there is. Okay. A very easy place to get an 8 relatively is the canter to trot transition that I talked about, the one that's going away from the judge. Not so easy when it's coming forward. Because we can see it better. The halt rein back If the halt is square, if it's relatively in the vicinity of C or A, and if the rein back is straight. Those are a lot of ifs. But the light bulb moment that happened for me, that started giving me 8s and halt rein backs, was to come out. So we had some people saying they're doing second halt. Again, come out of the corner, not just in shoulder forward, but almost in shoulder end. Because as you start to go back, you're already, if you halt and the butt's slightly here, it's going to go in. It's going to be crooked. If you're in shoulder end and you've got control of that outside shoulder, when you start to rein back, the horse will be straighter. So one of the secrets to the halt rein back, a straight halt rein back, is a shoulder in out of the corner. I give a lot of 8s for walk pirouettes. I give a lot of 4s for walk pirouettes. But one of the problems there is people haven't read the actual test. This is the second level and higher. They're not writing the test as written, and I will, here we go. Okay, as written, H, turn left, between G and M, collect, because they're in the medium walk, and then half turn on the haunches left. They don't do the collect part. They don't go from medium walk to collected walk. They don't do the transition. So they're walking along like this, and so when you go to turn, they're walking like that. You can't make it small. Whereas if you do that transition, and I'm watching for it, all the judges are, do the transition to a collected walk where the horse is now doing this rather than this, it's easy to make the turn. Same thing in the canter pirouette level. But now, how many of you have seen a freestyle where it's 4th level and up? As a judge, I can tell if they're going to do a canter pirouette before they do it, because they do those collected steps, ultra collected steps before they start the turn. So I give a lot of 8s on the walk pirouettes when they have that transition. I have rarely seen a 7 or higher if they don't do that transition, because it's too hard. Same thing at the 4th level canter pirouette. I give a lot of 8s at free walks where there's clear overstride and where I see the horse reaching his nose out toward the bit. The free walk is a stretchy chewy walk, just as the stretchy chewy movement is at the trot. Your hand goes forward, he reaches out to the bit, he starts swinging his back more. So what you want to do is your hips follow the motion. You don't keep kicking, and you don't shove with your butt, because that just tightens the corset. Yes?
How long is the ideal amount of time in the free walk where the horse is truly stretching out?
From letter to letter.
Just
If they start on the diagonal, you should see them, as you're turned on the diagonal, your hand should be going forward, and I should see the horse reaching toward. He may take 2 or 3 steps to get there, but I see the inclination start to happen. And the same thing at the other end, you're approaching the letter at the end, and you take 2 or 3 steps to do it. But it's not boom, boom. Just like it was the stretchy cheery on the circle that I mentioned. Your hand goes forward, the horse reaches toward the bit, you put the horse back together again, he goes back in contact. Okay, movements where it's really hard to get an 8 for anybody. The medium walk at training level on that first diagonal, the one that breaks, you do a medium walk on from the corner to the middle letter and then back. So the first half of it's a medium walk. I rarely give an 8 for that. Sometimes not even a 7. And I think because people are a little bit worried about it, showing the difference between a free walk and a medium walk, and they constrain the horse too much. But I'm watching for activity, energy, swing. It's just not a longer out. So don't be conservative about the suppleness of that medium walk. I rarely give an 8 on a trot lengthening at first level. Trot lengthening, first level. mostly because people haven't really trained their horse for it or gotten the horse strong enough for it. It's a work in progress. And I think there's a lot of wishing and hoping going on, but not necessarily a lot of training going on. But another reason that happens, and this is a large part of it, you have the option to post or sit at the trot at first level. Some people are sitting going into that lengthened trot. Some people are already posting. What happens is either if they're posting, they start to post faster, or they've been sitting and now they start to post. The horse doesn't lengthen. Here's the problem. They've changed the balance. The horse can't lengthen.
Mm-hmm.
You post because the horse lengthens, not to make the horse lengthen. And I'd say that 80% of the people I see at first level either start posting faster if they're already posting, or they post to get the horse to lengthen. And the horse can't lengthen until he's well past the quarter line. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you sit up, you're doing all those half halts in that really lovely corner you make next. And get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. Go. Post. When you feel the thrust, that's when you start to post. You posting or posting faster doesn't make the horse lengthen. Big one. That's a very common, I should say very quickly, because this isn't about 8s, it's more about 6s. But at training in first level, the biggest mistakes I see people make consistently, at least 50% of the people I see at training in first level, their stirrups are too long, their reins are too long, they lead with their inside shoulder on all their corners. At first level, all of that same stuff plus the posting too fast thing I just mentioned. And I will also say that I see a lot of people sitting in the trot at training first level who probably shouldn't. Mm-hmm. They put it there for the sake of the horses, the posting trot. And I, as a person who is north of a certain age, figure they put it there for me too. Mm-hmm. And I will also say that when it comes to posting and sitting, the professionals tend to post, and amateurs very often sit. So what does that tell you? The amateurs are saying, oh, it's dressage, I'm in front of the judge, I should sit. And the professional says, I do what benefits my horse. So if it helps your horse be more supple, post. If you need the sitting to help your balance, then sit. But do what benefits your horse.
But doing both is okay.
Yeah.
As long as the balance is there.
Yes. I mean, I wouldn't make a big deal of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
But, and I'm quite frankly not watching if you have on the correct diagonal on it.
Oh, thank you for that.
That is a very, the only time I really notice it is if something is wrong, like the horses on low. And then I start looking to see what the reason is. And if I see you posting on the wrong diagonal, then that might lower your rider score, for example. Plus your factor. Okay, so conversely, movements that are hard to get aids on, trot lengthening. At second level, at second 2, there's a canter serpentine where they do a simple change crossing the center line. At second 3, there's a serpentine where they do a counter canter in the second loop. I, for the life of me, cannot understand this. And I write it at the bottom of the test. I wish I had a stamp for this one. The serpentine, where they do the simple changes, is usually fine. They do that simple change as they're crossing the center line. Their horse's body is parallel with the short end of the ring. Fine. Second 3, the one that they do at the finals and regionals, they ride into the corners. Guess what? Serpentines don't have corners. They ride into the corners. The second loop is sort of a, they cross the center line on a diagonal. That's not a 20-meter half circle. It's not a serpentine. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if you want an 8 in that counter canter at second 3, work on the geometry of your serpentine. It's huge. I probably give more 6s there than I do 7s because of the geometry. Trot half passes, at their level, lack bend. Now, I can't tell if the horse really is bent at third level because he's coming straight at me, but I can tell if the horse's front end is pointing across the diagonal, and the tail is pointing toward the end of the ring. Therefore, he's got bend. Does that make sense? So, the development of bend for the half passes at third level is problematic. And that started at Travere at second level, because the Travere at second level is the same thing as the half pass at third level. It's just on a long side, not on the diagonal. So if you're having trouble learning your half passes, go back to the Travere. If you solve the Travere on the long side, you shouldn't have, or should have relatively little trouble getting the half pass. But it's interesting how many people I see with Traveres that just don't have it.
I've got half pass.